Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at a machine that uh, honestly seems like it was built to just annoy the entire modern car industry.
It's definitely a disruptor, but, when we say disruption with cars, we usually mean better self-driving or bigger screens. Well, it's the total opposite of that.
It really is. I mean, you look at the EV world right now, and it's all become so similar. We're in the age of the appliance. Cars are incredibly heavy, they're super isolated, and they're basically just giant iPads on wheels.
That's the skateboard effect, right? Almost everyone builds on those huge flat battery platforms. It makes cars feel roomy, sure, but also makes them heavy and, frankly, a bit numb. You lose that connection.
But then this report on the JMEV SC01 landed on our desk, or the Xiaomi in its home market.
Which just means small sports car. A very literal name, I have to say.
And on paper, this thing is a complete contradiction. It's an electric car that actively rejects tech. It's a Chinese car that's being assembled in Italy. And this is the part I still can't quite get my head around. It's backed by Xiaomi.
Right, Xiaomi, the phone company, the
Yeah.
tech giant that wants to put a screen on absolutely everything you own.
Exactly. Their whole business is digital ecosystems. Yet here they are, funding a car with zero infotainment screens and toggle switches that look like they're from a 1960s fighter jet. It feels like a paradox.
It is strange, isn't it? But if you think about it, maybe it's a smart hedge. If the whole market is flooded with digital appliances, the only way you can possibly stand out is to go in the completely opposite direction.
A palate cleanser.
A 429 horsepower palette cleanser, yeah.
Okay, before we get into the business strategy, which is actually kind of brilliant, we have to unpack the engineering. Because the specs here are, they're confusingly good.
They definitely challenge what we thought we knew about EV physics.
The number one stat, the one everyone's talking about, is the weight.
It's the headline figure. The SC01 weighs 1,365 kilograms. So for us, that's roughly 3,009 pounds.
Okay, let's put that in context. If I park this next to, say, a Tesla Model 3 Performance, what are we looking at?
The Tesla's about 1,000 pounds heavier.
1,000 pounds? That's an entire grand piano worth of extra weight.
It is. And even compared to gas-powered cars, the SC01 is lighter than a Porsche Cayman GTS. It's only a little bit heavier than a Mazda Miata, but it's carrying a huge battery pack.
That's the part I want to get into. We know batteries are heavy. So to get a car this light, they must have done something radical with the chassis. They didn't use a skateboard platform, right?
It couldn't. The skateboard is standard because it's cheap to build on, but it spreads the way out. The SC01 engineers, they rejected that. They went with a midship layout.
So they stacked the batteries behind the driver.
Exactly. Right behind the passenger compartment, just where the engine would be in a Ferrari or a Lotus.
That changes everything, doesn't it? It's not just about how much it weighs, but where that weight is.
Precisely. This brings us to the polar moment of inertia.
Okay, let's not turn this into a physics lecture. This is the figure skater thing.
It's the perfect analogy. So you've got a skater spinning. If their arms are out wide, all that weight is spread out, and they spin slowly. That's a skateboard car. It's stable, but it resists turning.
But if they pull their arms in tight,
They spin incredibly fast. By stacking the batteries in the middle, JMEV concentrated all the mass in the center. It makes the car want to rotate. It wants to turn.
and it solves that problem in most EVs where you feel like you're sitting on top of the car because the battery's under your feet.
Right. In the SC001, you're sitting on the floor. The roof is 3 inches lower than a Miata. The center of gravity is comparable to a GT3 race car.
To do that, though, they couldn't use a normal unibody chassis, could they?
No, and this is where the cost usually goes way up. They used a space frame chassis made of chromally tubular steel.
That's pure race car construction.
It is. It's all about stiffness and lightness, not ease of manufacturing. It's much harder to build, but it gives you that rigid, responsive feel.
So they basically built a race car and then figured out how to make it street legal.
You're not far off.
Okay, so we have this lightweight mid-engine thing. Let's talk power. Because usually lightweight EV means they sacrificed horsepower.
Not here. Dual motors, front and rear. Combined, you're looking at 429 horsepower.
In a 3,000-pound car, that power-to-weight ratio is, frankly, terrifying.
It's supercar territory. The 0 to 62, so 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, is 2.9 seconds.
2.9. That's knocking on the door of hypercars. But power is useless without control. And this is where that configurable drivetrain comes in. I had to read this part twice. You can manually switch the drive modes.
This is one of the coolest features. In most EVs, a computer decides everything for you. The SC01 has switches on the ceiling. You choose.
So all-wheel drive for that crazy launch.
Right, for maximum grip. But then you can flip a switch and go into rear-wheel drive mode.
Which is what you'd want for a track day, for drifting.
Exactly. You can slide the car, steer it with a throttle like a proper traditional sports car. But then there's the third mode, front-wheel drive.
That's the one that threw me. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you possibly want a 429 horsepower front-wheel drive car? Is it just for, like, efficiency?
Efficiency is part of it, sure, but the engineers actually compared it to the Honda Civic Type R.
Okay, so the gold standard for front-wheel drive handling.
Mm-hmm. Front-wheel drive pulls a car out of a corner. It has a very specific feel. So the engineers are basically saying, here are all the flavors of driving physics. You pick the one you want.
I love that. And they didn't stop there. The suspension. It says horizontal pushrod suspension.
Yes. Again, this is tech you usually only see on Formula One cars or, high-end Lamborghinis.
For the listener who might not be a suspension geek, why does that matter?
It's twofold. First, packaging. You lay the shocks flat, which lets you lower the whole hood line for better aero. But the real performance gain is reducing what's called unsprung weight.
That's anything not supported by the springs. So wheels, tires, brakes.
Exactly. Think of it like running in heavy boots versus light sneakers. By moving the heavy shock absorbers inboard, you make them sprung weight, so the wheels can react to bumps on the road almost instantly. It just keeps the tire glued to the pavement.
So it's not just a straight line missile, it's designed to corner.
Oh, yeah. It's a comprehensive tune. They aren't faking it.
Let's move inside because this is where that anti-EV idea really hits you. You sit in a new EV, you're bathed in the light of giant screens.
The SC01 is dark. There is no central infotainment screen at all.
I feel like for a lot of people, that's an immediate deal breaker. No maps, no Spotify.
It's a filter. If that's a deal breaker, this car is not for you. There's a small digital cluster for your speed and battery, and that's it. Everything else is a physical button or switch.
And they put the buttons on the ceiling.
That whole fighter jet thing, switches for the wipers, the AC, vehicle to load power. They're all toggle switches mounted right overhead.
I have to admit, I'm a sucker for that. Reaching up to flip a switch just feels important.
It's tactile, and you build muscle memory. You know where the wiper switch is. You don't have to look down and tap through 3 submenus on a screen to find it.
Speaking of tactile, the handbrake. A real lever.
A mechanical handbrake. The company explicitly said this was included to let drivers throw the rear end around.
I love that. A car company actually putting that in writing. Please use this for skids.
It tells you what the car is for. It's a toy, a tool for fun.
But is it a usable toy? It looks tiny.
It's compact, but they were clever. Forged carbon fiber racing seats are super thin, and they shifted the driver slightly toward the center for more room. And because there's no engine up front, they managed to carve out a storage space big enough for 2 large suitcases.
So it passes the weekend getaway test.
It does. It's very Lotus in its philosophy. Minimalist but functional. Visually, it's a stunner, too. It looks like a Lancia Stratos and a Lotus Emira had a kid.
That's a very, very good gene pool. Okay, let's hit the Achilles heel of any small EV range.
The battery is a 60 kilowatt-hour pack. It's NMC chemistry.
60 is decent. That's standard range Model 3 territory. But what's the real-world range?
Well, the official claim is 323 miles or 520 kilometers. But that's using the Chinese test cycle, the CLTC.
Which we know is always wildly optimistic. It basically assumes you're driving downhill with a tailwind.
Right. So realistically, especially if you're enjoying that 2.9-second launch, you're probably looking at more like 180, maybe 200 miles.
Which for a sports car is probably fine. You're not road tripping in this. You're going for a fun drive and coming home.
Exactly. And it charges from 30 to 80% in under 25 minutes. There's also talk of an even lighter 40 kilowatt-hour version coming later.
A smaller battery to save even more weight.
Yep. It would drop the weight down to a point where it's almost as light as a 90s Miata. That would be the pure track day special.
I would take that trade-off in a heartbeat. Okay, so we've established it's a marvel. Let's talk business, because this is where the story gets really complicated.
This is the global strategy part. So in China, the car starts at around 230,000 RMB.
Which converts to?
About 32,000 US dollars.
That's absurd. 32 grand for a sub-3-second car with pushrod suspension. That's cheaper than a Camry.
It shows you the scale of the Chinese supply chain. But, and this is the kicker, if you're in Europe, you are not paying that price.
Is it just tariffs and shipping?
It's more strategic than that. They're shipping the components to Italy and assembling the cars there under a new company called SC01 Europe.
Wait, Italy? Like the home of Ferrari and Lamborghini?
The very same. They're setting up a facility there to assemble a limited run of 1,000 units for Europe.
That is fascinating. Why go through all that trouble?
It does two things. First, it gets around the heavy tariffs the EU has on finished Chinese EVs. If it's assembled in Italy, it's technically an Italian product.
It's a U-pull.
A very smart one. And second, it's branding. Assembled in China says one thing. Assembled in Italy says something else entirely. It says heritage, passion, supercar.
So what's the price jump with this Italian makeover?
The estimate is somewhere between 60 and 70,000 euros.
Wow. Okay, so that's pushing 75,000 US dollars. More than double the price.
It is. But you have to ask yourself, what's the competition?
At 75 grand, a Porsche Cayman, an Alpine A110.
But those are gas cars. If you want a lightweight electric sports car, what are your options?
There aren't any.
Exactly. Lotus moved on to heavy SUVs. The Tesla Roadster is vaporware. Porsche's electric Boxster isn't out and will cost way more than this.
So even at double the price, they're walking into a completely empty market segment.
They have a total monopoly on fun, lightweight EVs right now. It's a brilliant strategy.
What about North America? Are we getting this thing?
No plans for the U.S. right now with all the trade issues, but the documents do explicitly mention Canada.
Ah, the Canada loophole.
Different import rules. So our Canadian listeners might be seeing these on the road sooner than you'd think.
Interesting. So let's zoom out. What does the existence of the SC01 actually mean?
I think it proves that making all EVs into these heavy appliances is a choice, not a necessity. We've been told EVs have to be heavy, or people want giant screens. This car calls their bluff.
It proves you can build a light, engaging EV if that's what you prioritize.
And it's a warning shot. If a small startup backed by a phone company can beat Porsche and Lotus to the punch, it suggests the legacy brands might be moving too slowly or in the wrong direction.
It challenges the whole idea that soul is something only European brands can build.
And honestly, it's just refreshing to see a car that is designed to be a machine, not a living room. It's made to be driven.
It really is. A return to form, just with a different plug.
Couldn't have said it better.
Before we wrap up, I just want to take a moment and talk to you, the listener. We know there is so much content out there. The fact that you chose to spend this time with us, geeking out over suspension geometry and battery chemistry, it genuinely means the world to us.
Absolutely. We love this stuff, but it wouldn't mean anything if you weren't tuning in and engaging with it. So really, thank you.
We truly appreciate it. Now, here is a final thought for you to chew on. We talked about that huge price gap, $32,000 in China, $75,000 in Italy. As global manufacturing gets even more efficient, are we heading to a future where luxury is just a story, just a markup on a commodity chassis? Or can the legacy brands engineer something truly unique that justifies that premium?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Is the soul of a car in the engineering, or is it just in the marketing?
Something to think about. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.